Prospect Hill, North Carolina. A small, unincorporated community in Caswell County, 90 minutes north of Raleigh, close to the Virginia border. Tobacco fields, long gravel driveways, homes spaced far enough apart that a gunshot at 8 in the morning might not reach the next house at all. On August 5, 2026, this quiet part of the state became the site of one of the deadliest family shootings North Carolina has seen this year. By the time the sun was fully up, 3 people were dead, a 4th was fighting for their life in a hospital bed 60 miles away, and the person responsible was already among the deceased. This is the story of what happened on Brooks Road, and what investigators still do not know. It was just before 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, in the 300 block of Brooks Road, in the Prospect Hill community of Caswell County. Someone placed a call for help. The Caswell County Sheriff's Office would later confirm that deputies were dispatched to a residence in response to a shooting. What exactly was said in that first call to dispatch has not been made public. What is known is this: when deputies arrived at the home, they did not find one victim. They found 4 adults, all shot, all members of the same family. Sheriff Tony Durden, who would go on to lead the public account of this case in the hours that followed, later told reporters that the incident took place around the house, not inside it. The victims, he said, were outside when they were shot. 3 of the 4 did not survive. The 4th was rushed to Duke University Hospital in Durham, more than an hour away, fighting for their life. Among the 3 who died was the person responsible for the shooting. Within minutes of arriving on scene, Sheriff Durden made a decision that would shape the entire investigation moving forward. He requested immediate assistance from the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, the agency responsible for handling the state's most serious and complex violent crimes. So did the Prospect Hill Fire Department, Caswell County EMS, and, notably, the neighboring Person County Sheriff's Office, called in to help secure and process a scene that spanned an entire property. By early afternoon, State Bureau of Investigation crime scene investigators were on the ground at the Brooks Road residence, processing evidence and conducting interviews with anyone connected to the family. At a press conference that Wednesday afternoon, Sheriff Durden stood before local reporters and confirmed what his department had found. 4 members of the same family shot outside their home, 3 dead, including the shooter. 1 survivor, hospitalized, condition unknown. He was asked directly about the relationship between the victims and the person who killed them. All members were in the same family, Durden said. He did not go further than that, not that day. To understand why a county sheriff's office would immediately bring in a state agency, it helps to understand what the State Bureau of Investigation actually does. Established in 1937, the SBI is North Carolina's primary state-level criminal investigative agency, headquartered in Raleigh, with statewide jurisdiction. While the agency has original jurisdiction over categories like narcotics, arson, and election fraud, one of its central functions is supporting local law enforcement on homicide investigations, cases that a small county sheriff's office, with limited manpower and forensic resources, is not equipped to process alone. Caswell County is exactly the kind of jurisdiction that relies on this support. It is a rural county with a small sheriff's office and no forensic crime lab of its own. A scene involving 4 gunshot victims across an entire residential property requires trained crime scene investigators, ballistics specialists, and personnel capable of managing a scene of this scale. Resources the SBI is built to provide on short notice. That is precisely what happened here. Within the same morning the bodies were discovered, SBI crime scene investigators were already en route to Brooks Road. Their job in the hours that followed was methodical and slow, photographing the scene before anything was moved, recovering shell casings and any firearm involved, documenting the position of each victim relative to the house, and beginning the forensic work that would eventually help establish a timeline of what happened. And none of it happens in public, which is part of why, more than a day after the shooting, so much about this case remained unconfirmed. One of the first questions any investigator asks in a case like this is whether there were warning signs. A prior call, a restraining order, a pattern of escalating conflict that law enforcement should have already known about. Sheriff Durden addressed this directly. His office, he said, had no record of the family ever contacting the Caswell County Sheriff's Office about domestic issues before that Wednesday morning. No prior calls for service at that address. No documented history that would have flagged this household as high risk. Whatever happened inside that family, it had not, as far as records show, ever reached the attention of local law enforcement before it turned fatal. There was a second equally critical question investigators could not immediately answer. Did the shooter live at that residence, or did they travel there that morning? As of the most recent update from authorities, that question remained open. Investigators said they were still working to determine whether the person responsible for the shooting was a resident of the Brooks Road home or had come from somewhere else. That distinction matters enormously. A shooter who lived in the house suggests a household that had reached a breaking point behind closed doors. A shooter who traveled to the property suggests planning, a decision made somewhere else, then carried out on Brooks Road. Investigators have not said which it was, not yet. What they did confirm is the classification of the incident itself. According to officials, the shooting resulted from what they characterized as a domestic disturbance. What led up to that disturbance, the argument, the conflict, the breaking point, whatever triggered 4 people being shot outside a family home, remains, in the words of investigators, still under investigation. That word domestic carries specific weight in how this case will likely be understood as more details emerge. It does not on its own tell us who was armed, who was the intended target, or whether the shooting was the result of a single explosive moment, or something that had been building for longer than anyone outside the family knew. It simply tells us that whatever unfolded outside that home on Brooks Road happened between people who knew each other, who were bound to one another by family, not by circumstance. For investigators, confirming that a shooting is domestic in nature is often the easier part of the process. It is usually established quickly through interviews with surviving family members, neighbors, and anyone who had contact with the household in the days before the incident. What takes far longer is determining the sequence of events. Who fired first, whether the surviving victim can provide an account once they are medically able to speak with investigators, and whether physical evidence at the scene supports or contradicts whatever version of events emerges from interviews. That surviving victim, hospitalized at Duke University Hospital, may ultimately hold the clearest account of what happened. But as of this report, their condition had not been publicly disclosed, and there is no indication they have yet been able to speak with investigators in any detail. In the hours after the shooting, as reporters worked to piece together a motive that officials had not yet confirmed, one detail surfaced from a source close to the family. A relative of those involved told a local news outlet that a dispute over family property may have been connected to what happened that morning. This claim came from a single family member, speaking to a reporter in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy. It has not been confirmed, corroborated, or referenced by the Caswell County Sheriff's Office, the State Bureau of Investigation, or any other law enforcement agency involved in this case. It is presented here not as an established fact, but as exactly what it is, one relative's account, offered in the rawest hours after losing members of their family, of what they believe may have been building beneath the surface. Land disputes between family members are not rare in rural communities like Prospect Hill, where property is often inherited across generations and boundaries are not always clearly settled on paper. Whether this dispute, if it existed at all in the way it was described, had any real connection to the shooting, is something only a completed investigation can determine. There is a reason this kind of claim spreads quickly in the aftermath of a tragedy like this one. Family members reeling in the hours after a loss often reach for an explanation, something that makes an incomprehensible act feel at least partly understandable. That instinct is human. It does not make the explanation accurate, and it does not mean investigators will ultimately reach the same conclusion. It is also worth noting what this claim does not do. It does not identify who was on which side of any dispute. It does not establish whether the shooter was involved in a disagreement over property at all, or whether such tension, if real, had anything to do with the specific morning the shooting occurred. A single sentence from a grieving relative, however sincere, is not the same as a determination made after weeks of interviews, financial records, and forensic analysis. Investigative journalism has a responsibility in moments like this, to report what a source said, clearly and honestly, while being equally clear about what that source's account does not prove. This channel treats the property dispute claim exactly that way, as one thread among several that investigators will either confirm or rule out as their work continues. Until the Sheriff's Office or the State Bureau of Investigation says otherwise, this remains an unconfirmed claim, not a motive. As of this report, Caswell County Sheriff's Office has not released the identities of anyone involved in this shooting, not the 3 who were killed, not the survivor fighting for their life in a Durham hospital, and not the person responsible. Sheriff Durden confirmed that next of kin had been formally notified. That step, the hardest conversation any law enforcement officer has to have, had already taken place by the time his office spoke publicly, but formal identification of the victims to the public had not. This is not unusual in an active investigation of this scale. Agencies frequently withhold names until every family member has been notified, until forensic identification is complete, and until investigators are confident that releasing information will not compromise the case. Officials said at the time that additional information, including the identities of those involved and the circumstances that led to the shooting, would be released as the investigation continued. That release has not yet happened. There is also a procedural layer to this delay that rarely makes it into initial news coverage. Before any identity is confirmed to the public, investigators typically need positive identification of each deceased individual, a process that, depending on the condition of the remains and the resources available to the county medical examiner's office, can take anywhere from hours to several days. Only after that identification is complete and only after every immediate family member has been personally notified do agencies like the Caswell County Sheriff's Office typically authorize the release of names. This matters because it explains a detail that can otherwise seem strange to viewers following a case in real time. A sheriff confirming that next of kin had been notified, while still declining to say who died. Those are 2 separate steps in the same process, and completing the first does not mean the second is ready to follow immediately. For a case involving 4 members of the same family, where the surviving relatives are, by definition, also the next of kin of the deceased, this process can be especially delicate. Investigators are not simply confirming facts. They are delivering the worst news imaginable to people who in some cases may also be central witnesses to what happened. To understand this case, it helps to understand where it happened. Prospect Hill is not a town in the traditional sense. It is a rural, unincorporated community inside Caswell County, a county so sparsely populated that its total population numbers in the low 20,000s. The nearest hospital capable of handling trauma injuries of this severity was Duke University Hospital in Durham, more than an hour's drive from the scene. This is tobacco and farmland country. Homes here often sit on multi-generational properties, land passed down through families for decades. It is the kind of place where a shooting like this doesn't just shock a neighborhood, it shocks a community small enough that nearly everyone either knows the family involved or knows someone who does. Authorities were direct in stating that this incident posed no threat to the general public. The State Bureau of Investigation confirmed that the shooting was contained entirely to the Brooks Road property, an isolated, family event, not an act of random or public violence. Sheriff Durden, addressing the community directly, asked that residents keep the family in their prayers. That statement, brief as it was, reflects something particular about how small, rural communities absorb violence. In a major city, a shooting confined to a single residence rarely becomes a story the entire community carries. In a place like Prospect Hill, it becomes exactly that. Local sheriff's offices in counties this size often serve populations where multiple generations of the same families have lived within a few miles of each other for decades. A tragedy involving one family does not stay contained to that family's grief. It moves through churches, through schools, through the handful of local businesses that serve as informal gathering points for a community this size. This is also, practically speaking, why an incident like this becomes both easier and harder to investigate at the same time. Easier because in a tight-knit rural community, investigators often do not have to search far to find people who knew the family and may be able to speak to tensions or patterns that outsiders would never have seen. Harder, because those same relationships can make witnesses reluctant to speak on the record about people they have known their entire lives, even when what they know may be central to understanding what happened. With the person responsible already deceased, this case will never see the inside of a courtroom in the way most homicide cases do. There will be no arrest, no arraignment, no trial, where evidence is presented before a jury and a verdict is ultimately reached. That fact fundamentally changes what justice and resolution mean here. Instead, the primary outcome investigators are working toward is a complete and accurate account of what happened, for the surviving family and for the public record. The State Bureau of Investigation's Crime Scene Unit will continue processing physical evidence recovered from the property. Firearm analysis, if a weapon was recovered, to confirm what was used and how many rounds were fired. Forensic examination of the scene to establish where each victim was standing and in what sequence they were shot. And toxicology results, which typically take weeks to return, to determine whether alcohol or any substance played a role. Investigators will also continue interviewing anyone with knowledge of the family's recent circumstances, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and any surviving relatives capable of providing an account. In cases involving multiple deceased victims and a deceased suspect, these interviews often become the single most important source of information, since physical evidence alone can establish what happened, but rarely explains why. Once that investigative work concludes, the Caswell County Sheriff's Office and the State Bureau of Investigation will typically issue a final public statement. In many cases like this one, that statement includes confirmed identities of everyone involved, a more complete account of what preceded the shooting, and where evidence allows, an official determination of the sequence of events. Investigations of this nature, particularly ones involving forensic analysis and toxicology, can take anywhere from several weeks to several months to fully close. As this investigation continues, several critical questions remain unresolved. Who were the 4 people shot on Brooks Road that morning, and what was their relationship to one another beyond being family? Did the person responsible for the shooting live in that home, or did they arrive there specifically to carry out this act? What was the nature of the domestic disturbance that investigators say preceded the shooting? And was a property dispute genuinely part of it, or is that claim unrelated to what actually happened? Why had this family never appeared in the sheriff's office's records, despite whatever tension had apparently been building toward this outcome? And when will the names of the 3 who died, and the one fighting to survive, finally be made public? The Caswell County Sheriff's Office, working alongside the State Bureau of Investigation, the State Highway Patrol, and the Person County Sheriff's Office, continues to process evidence and conduct interviews connected to this case. On an ordinary Wednesday morning, in a community defined by its quiet, 4 members of one family were shot outside their home. 3 of them did not live to see the afternoon. The 4th is still fighting. What brought them to that moment, the pressure, the dispute, the breaking point, is still being pieced together by investigators nearly 100 miles from where most of us will ever set foot. Prospect Hill will carry this. A small community now permanently marked by a single Wednesday morning on Brooks Road. We will continue to follow this case as new information is released. If updates emerge, names, a confirmed motive, further detail on what led to this tragedy, we will bring them to you as soon as they are verified. Until then, this remains what it is, an active investigation, a grieving family, and a community holding its breath for answers. Subscribe to Behind the Case File for more true crime investigations covered with accuracy and respect.